This young man resides in a world engulfed in magic, where power is measured by the marks on one's face. Yet, he stands as an anomaly, a person devoid of magical aptitude, but possessing an absurd level of strength. In his presence, all beings are equal, and he's ready to pummel any arrogant fool into submission. His name is Mashle, and his existence defies the natural order in the world. He lives in a hut with his father Berndiad, where they enjoy their lives in isolation. When Mashle goes home, he ends up breaking the door, forgetting if it was a push or pull. This makes Berndiad upset, but Mashle apologizes, promising to fix it. He tries to put it back, but he just pounds it against the door frame, making the damage even worse. After that, they have tea together, and we learn that Mashle is different from other people, because he can't use magic, so Berndiad has been trying to make his body stronger to make up for it. But Mashle doesn't know this, so he continues to wonder why his training is purely physical. Berndiad heads out, but warns Mashle not to venture into the city while he's gone. But after his father leaves, he immediately runs to the city wearing a cloak, wanting to try a limited edition cream puff from the bakery. He walks around the city, where he sees the people using magic, but he thinks that it's nothing special, because the things they do with magic can also be done with their hands. Mashle reaches the bakery and becomes excited, ordering some cream puffs. But as he pays, all the coins are bent, because he had clenched his fist when he had gotten too excited. But the baker thinks that the coins shouldn't be bent so easily. Mashle fixes them up, straightening them to their original form, and the baker freaks out. After a while, Mashle gets his food, but the winds blow, revealing his face to the public, and everyone is surprised because he doesn't have any marks on his face. Meanwhile, we see an officer named Brad at the police station. He reads a newspaper about this year's Divine Visionary, a title given to the top student of the Magic Academy, which also comes with a number of promotions and rewards. The phone rings, and he is informed about a man walking around the city with no mark on his face. As Mashle walks around the streets, he wonders why everyone is staring at him, but he just eats his cream puffs. He bumps into a drunk officer named Terry, messing up his uniform with some of the cream and making him upset. Terry knocks the food off his hands as he continues to run his mouth. Mashle rips off the officer's uniform, but he actually has good intentions, telling Terry that he will wash it up for him. At that moment, Brad arrives, asking Terry why he's naked. He looks at Mashle, thinking that he is the man mentioned in the report, so he approaches him, but Bern arrives, grabbing his son and running away, while Brad summons a magical bird to go after them. When they return home, Bern scolds his son for going into the city despite his warning. Bern forgives him in the end, but he punishes Mashle by making him repeat his workout routine. As Mashle leaves the house to train, Bern thinks that Mashle is actually a good kid, and he can't blame him for wanting to go to the city, because he has spent his entire life hiding in the forest. Bern thinks about how to deal with the police when he sees Brad's bird watching him from his window. Brad suddenly arrives with his men, asking Bern where his son is. We see Mashle training in the woods, lifting the weight like it's nothing, and completing his workout in 5 minutes. He heads back home, but just as he is about to open the door, he hears Brad as he explains that magic has flourished, because they have gotten rid of all the people who can't use magic, calling it a necessary sacrifice for a better world. Brad pushes Bern, telling him that sheltering the unmarked is a serious offense, but Bern refuses to tell them about his son's whereabouts. In a flashback, we learn that Bern has always been treated as a failure in everything that he does. This goes on until adulthood, and he thinks about taking his own life, when suddenly, he hears a baby Mashle crying. He realizes that the baby was abandoned because he had no mark, thinking that they are both unwanted by society, so he decides to raise the baby as his own. Back in the present, Bern screams at Mashle to run, so Brad starts beating him up, but just as he is about to finish him off, Mashle bursts through the door, hitting one of the officers and blowing him away. Terry goes to him, but Mashle rips his uniform off, slapping him repeatedly until he falls to the ground. Mashle reveals that he didn't run because Bern is his only family, but Brad laughs at him, thinking that he has no chance because he can't use magic. He attacks Mashle with the spell he used to drive away a dragon, but Mashle easily deflects it with one hand, and Brad can't believe his eyes. He follows up with an even stronger spell, but Mashle slaps it away, causing it to explode elsewhere. Terry continues to attack Mashle with his magic, while Mashle deflects his attacks, and it looks like he's having fun. He takes his father's wand, while Brad defends himself with a barrier, thinking Mashle is about to use magic, but Mashle throws the wand at Brad, breaking his barrier and causing him to fall to his knees. Mashle threatens to kill him the next time he threatens his family, But Brad proposes a deal where Mash will enroll in a magic academy and become a divine visionary so that society will accept him, saying that he will back Mash up because he wants the reward that comes with it. He claims that if they don't accept his deal, they'll be hunted down for the rest of their lives. So Mash agrees to the deal. Mash embarks on a daunting journey to Easton Magic Academy, adorned with a counterfeit mark, to partake in an entrance exam notorious for its stringent pass rate of less than 3%. Amid the gathering of hopefuls, Lucci, an observer of extraordinary magical prowess, notices the anomaly of Mash, who, amidst this congregation of magical aspirants, engages in physical training with an ease that belies the gravity of his actions. Lucci, tasked with overseeing the examination, introduces himself with a flourish that commands the attention and respect of all present, save for Mash, whose indifferent critique of Lucci's grandiosity incites a simmering animosity in the examiner. The exam unfolds, presenting a challenge not merely of intellect but of magical acuity, as the questions themselves rebel against stillness, requiring a mastery over magic to be deciphered. While others may see this as an insurmountable hurdle for Mash, he, through sheer will and physical dominance, compels the rebellious words into submission, completing the test with a swiftness that leaves the onlookers, including Lucci, astounded. The subsequent challenges test not only Mash's physical and intellectual mettle, but also his moral compass. In the conjured maze, an encounter with Lemon, another examinee, offers a glimpse into Mash's character. Despite her initial appearance as a comrade, Lemon's actions reveal a competitive undercurrent, yet Mash's response is not one of retaliation but of relentless pursuit of his own goals, demonstrating a resolve that transcends mere physical prowess. Even when confronted with a creature within the maze, Mash's reaction is not of fear but of protective instinct, showcasing his strength not as a means of domination but as a shield for others, knocking out the creature with a single, decisive blow to protect Lemon. Through these trials, Mash not only challenges the norms of a world where magical ability is the ultimate measure of worth, but also redefines strength in a context where physical power and moral integrity intertwine, setting a new paradigm in a realm ruled by magic. Lemon wonders why he saved her, and Mash explains that they must be there for a similar reason, so he feels sorry for her. She is worried that they won't be able to complete the maze in time, but Mash has a plan. Meanwhile, Lucci is confident that Mash is going to fail, but the ground suddenly starts shaking as they hear loud noises. The wall breaks as Mash joins them, and we learn that he just destroyed the maze to create a path. The other successful examinees call him a cheater, telling him to go home, but Lemon tells them that it wasn't Mash's fault, confessing that Lucci promised to get her into the school if she stopped Mash. Lucci admits to this, saying that he doesn't like Mash as he unleashes his magical powers. He tells them that he will fail Mash and Lemon, asking them if they want to challenge his decision. But Mash crushes Lucci's wand with his fist as he tells the professor that he has gone too far. At that moment, the headmaster Wahlberg arrives, informing them that the final interview is about to begin and that he will now be acting as the examiner. Mash is the first applicant to be interviewed, so he is taken to a room where he is surrounded by school officials. He is asked a few questions, and the officials don't seem to like his answers. However, the headmaster finds him interesting, asking him why he saved the girl in the maze even though he didn't have enough time left. Mash tells him that he had a feeling that he would regret not saving her, and Wahlberg realizes that Mash is the type to act before thinking, explaining that there are creatures stronger than him, and he wonders if Mash would act that way if faced with such a creature. Wahlberg uses his magic to summon a large creature that threatens to harm a doll, which contains the soul of the person that is dearest to Mash, who is obviously burned dead. Mash tries to stop it by punching it, but it does nothing and his hand starts bleeding. The school officials are surprised when he uses his hands to stop the blade from reaching the doll. He knows that the creature will eventually disappear, intending to outlast it. Wahlberg realizes that Mash is someone who can protect the weak and regulate the strong, so he recalls the creature and lights up the place, revealing that Mash was just being tested as he welcomes him to the Easton Magic Academy. Later on, we see them in class where they learn the lock opening spell, which is considered to be basic. The teacher demonstrates it, but Mash just uses his hands to destroy the lock, making the teacher angry because he didn't even use magic. Mash explains that he is not good with magic, while the boy next to him, Finn, starts seeing him as a troublemaker. After class, Finn looks for his dorm, hoping Mash is not going to be his roommate. He finds his room, but the door is missing and he sees Mash holding onto it, making him realize that they are going to be sharing the room. They get to know each other and Finn starts to think that Mash is just a normal guy. But he suddenly introduces Finn to his muscles, making him think he is a weirdo. Mash asks Finn if he can borrow his broom for the next class, since he brought a giant plant root instead, thinking it was a broom. Finn allows it, and the next day, the teacher trains them to fly with the broom. Mash tries to do it, but the broom won't respond to him, so he gets ridiculed by a student, saying that he's slowing the class down. But Mash stomps his foot and causes the broom to fly into his hand. The student calls him a cheater, saying he didn't use magic, as the teacher announces a time trial to see how fast the students can fly with their brooms. The guy challenges Mash to a race, where the loser must obey the winner until they graduate. Mash accepts the challenge, so they prepare to race. The instructor doubts Mash can even ride his broom, but she begins the race anyway, and Mash ends up winning instantly, setting a new world record with his speed. Everyone is confused, because they didn't even see Mash move, but Finn saw Mash throw the broom forward and jump towards it, allowing him to ride it while it was in midair. The student accuses Mash of cheating, and he takes pity on him, so he drops the bet. The guy continues to run his mouth, but it gets stitched shut as a student named Kavil makes his entrance. He apologizes on his friend's behalf, but everyone knows that Kavil is a troublemaker, so they are worried about Mash, thinking he has just become a target. Kavil introduces himself to Mash, but Mash mishears his name as Cabbage, making everyone fall silent. Kavil prepares to cast a spell, but the teacher interrupts, reminding them that they are in the middle of class. So Kavil tells him to meet him after class, and he leaves the scene. As they make their way back to their room, Finn reveals that Kavil is the son of a high-ranking member at the Bureau of Magic. He adds that Mash will get expelled if he messes with Kavil, since his family has close ties with the vice principal, and Finn has actually seen students suffer because of Kavil, so he understands why everyone is scared of him. Mash starts baking cream puffs on his own, enjoying the experience, while Kavil is waiting for him at the field, and becomes upset that Mash isn't showing up. Mash embarks on a new day at Easton Magic Academy, but his academic materials are far from pristine. Kavil, noticing Mash's disarrayed state, inquires about his absence, only to learn of Mash's preoccupation with baking cream puffs, a revelation that irks Kavil. Seizing an opportunity, Kavil offers Mash a proposition: allegiance in exchange for a potential endorsement from the vice principal to become the divine visionary. Eager for this chance, Mash consents, unwittingly becoming Kavil's underling. As Mash navigates his daily routines, the condition of his educational resources further deteriorates. Finn, witnessing Mash's predicament, hesitantly extends a helping hand, lending him a book. This act of kindness deepens Mash's appreciation for Finn, highlighting a burgeoning camaraderie amidst the Academy's competitive environment. However, Kavil's intentions are far from benevolent. In a display of dominance and control, he orders Mash to clean a deliberately spilled mess, unveiling a sinister plan where he had instructed Finn to sabotage Mash's materials. When Finn resists escalating the sabotage to personal belongings, Kavil resorts to magical coercion, demonstrating a stark abuse of power. The conflict escalates as Mash stumbles upon Kavil's mistreatment of Finn. Kavil, unrepentant, seeks to manipulate the situation further by proposing a dinner with the vice principal, but Mash responds with swift retribution, incapacitating Kavil. Finn's distress at the potential consequences for Mash highlights the gravity of the situation. The vice principal, Farman, emerges, vested with the responsibility of overseeing Kavil due to familial ties. Witnessing the altercation, Farman prepares to exploit his authority, framing the incident as a grave misconduct deserving severe disciplinary action. His prejudice and partiality are evident as he disparages Mash and Finn, threatening their academic futures. In a moment of defiance, Mash confronts Farman's corruption head-on, challenging his authority through physical confrontation. Farman's attempts to assert control through magic are thwarted by Mash's decisive actions, culminating in a dramatic, albeit reckless, attempt to subdue the vice principal. The aftermath sees Mash facing severe repercussions, as he is summoned by the headmaster and informed of a directive from the Bureau of Magic advocating his expulsion. This development underscores the harsh realities of the Academy's hierarchical structures and the looming challenges Mash must navigate to uphold his values and aspirations within a world governed by magical elitism and bureaucratic machinations. We learn that the Bureau of Magic is the highest legal authority in the land, and the divine visionaries produced by the Academy are at its core. He reminds Mash about Kavil's status, but he burns the notice because he doesn't want good people to be put at a disadvantage. Wahlberg rants about the current status of the world, since it only serves the elites. He thinks that it needs more people like Mash, who are willing to sacrifice themselves to do the right thing, and he even wants Mash to become a divine visionary someday. Mash mentions how he plans to become one, so the headmaster explains the way to become one, but Mash can't handle all the information. So Wahlberg decides to keep it simple, telling him that he just needs to earn high marks and acquire as many coins as possible. He assures Mash that he will take care of the bureau and the vice principal, and Mash takes his leave. The next day, the captain of the Duello team, Tom, invites him to represent their dorm in a game, which is basically like Quidditch from Harry Potter. Mash says that he can't ride a broom, but Tom doesn't believe him, dragging him into the team. During the match, the enemy grabs possession of the ball, and Mash is still on the ground, as he reiterates that he can't ride a broom. The crowd thinks that he isn't even trying, so they cheer at him, throwing things at him. His team is getting wrecked, and Tom goes to him, explaining the rules of the game. We learn that they need to pass the ball through the enemy's ring to earn points, and the use of magic is forbidden, since the game is all about broom technique. Tom is about to give back to the game, when the enemy captain intentionally bumps into him, causing him to fall. Mash checks up on him, and Tom seems to have broken some bones, asking the enemy captain about his sense of sportsmanship. But the enemy captain doesn't care, revealing that winning is all that matters to him. Before getting back into the game, Tom knows that their team is about to lose, but he tells Mash that winning isn't everything, and that giving one's best is even more important. They are 50 points behind, making the enemy captain think that they are about to win, but they seem to have enraged Mash, who grabs onto his broom and jumps into the air. He maintains his altitude by rapidly kicking around, leaving the spectators confused. He gains possession of the ball while the enemy team charges toward him, but he uses his inhuman strength to throw the ball, blowing them away, and scoring a point. The crowd is surprised as the ball circles around, returning to Mash like a boomerang. He keeps repeating the same move to score more points, while everyone watches on in disbelief. Their score eventually reaches 999, making them the winners, and the Academy recognizes their score as a record, and they are given silver coins as a reward. Finn thinks his performance was incredible, but Mash doesn't want to play that game again, while Tom gives him a hug, as he thanks him for helping the team win. Later, we see a student named Lance reading a newspaper, where he learns about Mash's retirement. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam, destroying his picture as he makes Mash his next target. During his class, Tom pesters him into practicing for their game, while Lemon wants to study with him, but Mash isn't interested in spending time with them. At that moment, Lance appears, and Lemon recognizes him as the student who topped the entrance exam. Lance wants to do something fun, pulling out a special magical tool and opening it, causing Mash's friends to disappear, as they are trapped inside of the bottle. Lance tells Mash to go to the forest if he wants them back, and then disappears. They meet at the forest, where Lance reveals he is also collecting coins, showing 2 silver coins. We learn that most people only have one magic line on their face, but there are rare cases when a person has more magic lines, indicating that they have greater magical power. Lance challenges Mash to a duel, where they each bet 1 silver coin, and Mash accepts the duel. So Lance pulls out his wand, using a spell to prepare the area for their duel. After he has cleared the area, Mash tries to attack him with his fists, but Lance uses a gravity spell to slam him to the ground. Mash struggles as he tries to stand, while Lance tells him that no human can withstand his spell. But Mash punches through the ground, pulling out giant roots and splitting the earth beneath his opponent, driving him back. Lance lands on his knees, stunned by Mash's ridiculous power. As Mash dashes towards him, Lance tries to stop Mash with the same gravity spell, but Mash uses his speed to escape and tries to punch him, but Lance narrowly dodges his attack. His necklace falls to the ground, and Mash picks it up out of curiosity. He opens it up, revealing the picture of Lance's sister, and Lance confesses that he has a sister complex, telling Mash to give it back. Lance asks him, what is the most important thing in the world? Mash tries to answer cream puffs, but Lance tells him he is wrong, and the only correct answer is his little sister, making Mash think that he is a creep. Lance threatens to drop his friends down the cliff, claiming that he will use them to help him win the match. In a flashback, we learn that Lance's sister is suffering from an incurable disease that will strip her of her magical powers, and without them, she will have to be taken out, because magic-less people have no right to live in their world. So, Lance wants to become a divine visionary to save his sister from the system. Back in the present, Lance drops the bottle, using a magic spell to accelerate its descent. But Mash changes into his workout gear. Positioned to sprint, he launches himself with such speed that he vanishes from his adversary's view. In his quest, Lance scans the surroundings, only to find Mash materializing behind him. Astonished by Mash's swift retrieval of the bottle, Lance suspects sorcery. Yet Mash, recognizing Lance's inherent goodness and spotting the bottle's emptiness, shifts focus from combat to camaraderie. He swiftly secures the genuine bottle, liberating his comrades. Acknowledging defeat, Lance relinquishes his silver coin and departs, leaving Mash to ponder over Lance's unexpected nobility as his peers gather, expressing their gratitude for his heroism. The narrative unfolds at an academy, segmented into 3 dormitories that epitomize distinct virtues: Adler, symbolizing bravery; Orca, embodying wisdom; and Lang, representing ambition, all entwined in an academic rivalry. Mash, now in possession of silver coins, contemplates their value, equating 5 silver ones to a golden counterpart. Amid relaxation, Finn's anxiety over an uncompleted potions task disrupts the tranquility. Unexpectedly, Lance reappears, chiding them for their negligence, threatening their dorm's esteem. However, Mash's strategic use of his necklace subdues Lance, leaving him incapacitated. In a twist of assistance, Lance reveals a screaming mandrake, crucial for their assignment, and demonstrates the silencing spell. Finn's attempt falters, attributed to his inadequate physical strength. In contrast, Mash's spell incites chaos in his mandrake. Guided by Lance, Finn successfully lulls his mandrake, whereas Mash's mandrake spirals out of control, only to be subdued by a firm slap. Lance then skillfully prepares the mandrake, showcasing the ease of potion making. Finn thinks it's not easy at all, but Mash is confident, saying it's no problem, since it doesn't require any magic. So he repeats the steps that Lance showed him, but he ends up making a cream puff instead. Lance thinks he is messing around, so he watches Mash and guides him step by step, but it still turns out as a cream puff, which leaves Lance completely confused. And despite all his attempts, it always comes out as a cream puff, but they are actually pretty good. We see Headmaster Wahlberg, as he thinks about the upcoming cross-dorm, off-campus class, wondering if Mash will be okay. We see a student named Barrett, as he bumps into some other students. They tell him off, but he ends up beating them all up, and he calls them side characters. Meanwhile at the Lang dorm, they think that those who rule should have overwhelming power, thinking that the Adler dorm is unworthy. So the leader orders for them to take all of the coins from the Adler students. The next day, the Lang and Adler dorms have a joint class in the forest. Mash wonders what they will be doing for the class, and they notice Barrett, who makes a racket about how he is the main character. Mash thinks he is weird, but Barrett thinks he is a side character, looking at his appearance. But Lemon arrives, asking Mash if she can tag along with him. Barrett gets annoyed and spits on Mash. He starts freaking out about how he is getting attention from a girl, thinking that it's because of people like him that he can't get a girl himself, wanting to join the bureau so he can get rid of all the hot guys in the world. But the group just ignores him, and he gets even more annoyed. However, the professor appears, explaining their next class. They are tasked with taking out 4 scorpions and retrieving the stone from their heads. Regular stones are worth a bronze coin, but the stronger scorpions have a square stone, which is worth a silver coin. The professor sends them off, and Mash is aiming for a silver coin. He is suddenly approached by a student named Silva who witnessed his feat during his duel at Mash, but reminds him he is nothing as he attacks Mash with a pillar of iron. The professor breaks things up, and Silva claims they were just messing around. Mash glares at him, but Lance ends up stopping him, revealing that Silva is actually a year older than them. But since he was a troublemaker, he was held back for a year. Lance warns him to avoid Silva, but Mash is just glad his cream puff didn't get squished. They head into the forest, and Lance thinks they should work together, but Mash disappears because he happened to zone out. He runs into Barrett, who starts freaking out, but he just slaps him. Barrett wants to fight him, but they suddenly hear a scream as we see a girl being attacked by another student. She cries for help, and there is an explosion that defeats the boy. The girl thanks Barrett for saving her, and he starts to freak out. He tries to act cool, but when she grabs his hand, he starts to lose it. Meanwhile, we see a defeated scorpion as it seems Silva has already obtained a square stone, but it seems there is something else he is after. The girl thanks Barrett once again, and their knees touch. Barrett is overwhelmed, and starts slamming his head into the ground, but we learn that the girl is using magic to charm him, magic that makes anyone who finds her attractive to fall madly in love with her. She tries to work her magic on Mash, but he says he didn't really do anything. The girl is shocked her magic isn't working on him, so she tries to use more energy, grabbing his hand, but it still has no effect on him, leaving her devastated. Barrett wonders about her situation, and the girl explains she is being threatened by Silva, who is forcing her to use her unique magic. Barrett swears to help her, and at that moment, they are suddenly attacked, and Silva appears. Barrett decides to fight him to help the girl. He attacks with a barrage of fireballs, ending things with a giant explosion. Meanwhile, we see Finn and Lemon clinging onto Lance as they cry for help, but he wonders if Mash is okay, since he is being targeted by Silva. Barrett thinks he is won, but as the smoke clears, we see that Silva protected himself with his iron. He attacks Barrett with his pillar, and knocks Mash's cream puff out of his hand. Silva continues to taunt them to fight him, while Mash is just stunned by the loss of his cream puff. Barrett starts to get worried, thinking there is a big difference in their magic power. He thinks Mash is no use, so he thinks it's all up to him to save the girl. Silva starts taunting him, saying his magic was weak and calling him a letdown. So, he decides to give them a chance, saying if he can take 5 of his attacks, he will leave the girl alone, even wagering a silver coin in accordance with the rules of the academy. The girl thinks it's a ridiculous deal, saying he could get seriously injured, but Barrett accepts it, thinking he can withstand 5 hits. However, Silva says that Mash is also a part of it, so he also needs to agree. Barrett says Mash isn't involved, but Silva insists that he is, so Barrett decides to take on all 10 attacks to cover for Mash. Silva thinks he is mad, and he starts attacking with his Iron Fist spell. Barrett is brought to his knees after just 1 attack, but he manages to get back up. Silva keeps on attacking with his spell, and Barrett is continuously slammed by the iron pillars, while the girl and Mash watch on. After 9 attacks, Barrett is still standing, thinking about how the girl cried for his help. Silva orchestrates a formidable offensive for the concluding strike. The assault connects, and Barrett hits the deck. While Silva revels in his triumph, Barrett astonishingly rises, declaring the end is nigh, only to collapse, earning Silva's ridicule. Urging Mash to flee with the girl, their plan unravels as she sides with Silva, dismissing Barrett disdainfully. Silva mocks Barrett's gullibility, but a cream puff unexpectedly silences him. Mash, deeming their antics excessive, steps into the fray, eager to tackle Silva's 10-hit challenge. Elsewhere, his comrades vanquish a scorpion, with Lance pondering Mash's welfare. Lemon assures Lance of Mash's prowess, referencing his victory over the professor, though Lance highlights the distinction between white mages, scholars and supporters, and red mages, the combatants. He speculates that seasoned red mages might outclass Mash. Silva perceives Mash's defiance as bravado, expressing his pleasure in demoralizing the pretentious weak. Noticing his robe's damage from Barrett's magic, Silva re-engages, but Mash's counterpush stuns him. Silva, underestimating Mash, mocks him while launching a barrage of attacks. Mash, unfazed, neutralizes Silva's spells and delivers a staggering blow, sending Silva reeling. Silva's disbelief grows as Mash disrupts his magic, landing another decisive hit. Now humbled, Silva acknowledges his defeat, or he can't withstand more. Yet, Mash pauses, signaling 8 more strikes remain, perplexing Silva. Mash gets back up, asking if he is ready for the next attack, but Silva knows he can't take any more, thinking he would die. He tries to think of a plan, and at that moment, an enormous scorpion suddenly appears. It has a star-shaped stone on its head, which means it's extra strong and valuable. Silva thinks he can get away while Mash is occupied by it, but Mash sends it flying with a single hit, saying he has no time to deal with it, and it drops its star-shaped stone. Silva starts freaking out, thinking Mash is a monster, but Mash calls off their fight, feeling bad for him, and he turns his attention to the girl. The girl starts panicking, and she turns on the waterworks, crying and saying that she was forced into helping Silva. But Mash tells her it's okay, and she thinks that men are just too easy to manipulate. But Mash believes in equality, as he slams her into the ground, and Barrett thinks there is something wrong with him. Mash meets up with his friends, and Lemon worries, seeing him all beaten up, but he says he is fine. Finn is impressed he even beat the Starstone Scorpion, revealing that it's worth 2 silver coins. Lemon thinks he should go to the nurse's office, and she checks up on Barrett as well. He is instantly charmed by her, and he starts freaking out, while she thinks he is just weird. Barrett ends up apologizing to Mash for getting him mixed up into things, and thanks him for his help. But Mash thinks he is acting weird, so Barrett immediately threatens to beat him, saying it took everything for him to be nice. Mash's pocket suddenly glows, as his silver coins have joined to become a gold coin. Lance mentions how they are being targeted. hearing that the Lang dorm is hunting them for their coins, explaining why Silva was after them. He explains that the Lang dorm is basically Slytherin, with people that value birthright and bloodlines, wanting to prevent the riffraff from joining the Bureau of Magic. He warns them to watch out for the Mashle, the group of elite students from the Lang dorm. Mash mentions how he didn't even know they were separated by dorms, and Finn reminds him about the sorting ceremony. We see that right after they were accepted into the academy, they were sorted by the skeleton of a unicorn. The students grab onto its horn, and the skeleton is able to read their mind and sort them into the appropriate dorm. But when it was Mash's turn, it sees he only thinks about cream puffs. The skeleton panics, as this is the first time in centuries it has struggled to sort a student. It tries to look deeper into his mind, but there is really only cream puffs, and it just decides that people who love cream puffs must belong to the Adler dorm. Lance continues to explain that the Mashle consists of the 7 top students of the dorm, and Silva must have been one of the lackeys. He warns Mash that since he has a coin, he needs to be extra careful, telling him to stick with people from their dorm. But despite this warning, Mash ends up getting lost while looking for his class. He finds a door to a room, and he thinks about how to open it, wondering if it is a push or a pull. Meanwhile, we see Silva as he apologizes for his failure. We learn that the leader of the Lang dorm is named Abel, and he holds a creepy-looking doll. He says that their mission is to cleanse the world of its impurities, and Silva begs for a second chance. But Abel calls him unworthy to even be a pawn, and he is turned into a doll. The doll gets up and proceeds to get in line, and Abel claims he is the only one worthy to become the next divine visionary, as he talks to his doll, which he calls Mother. But at that moment, Mash suddenly enters, apologizing for destroying another door, and he points out that Abel is weird for talking to a doll. Abel is aware that Mash has a gold coin, and he asks him why he is trying to become a divine visionary. Mash says he just wants to live peacefully with his family, but the current world won't accept him. Abel thinks he is ridiculous and unworthy, explaining how he wants to return the world to its rightful form. He says humanity was able to flourish, thanks to getting rid of the weak and people without magic, but he thinks society has started to become weak. He calls humans beasts by nature, so he plans to restore the natural order, but Mash thinks he just wants to live peacefully as well. Not understanding what he was saying, Abel offers to let him go in exchange for his gold coin, but Mash just refuses. Abel attacks with one of his puppets, but Mash dodges, countering with his legs and ripping the strings attached to the puppet, and it turns back into Silva. Mash is suddenly grabbed by another puppet. The puppet grabs his coin and flicks it over to Abel. Mash is then thrown into a pillar, but he gets back up, apologizing for calling his puppet weak. But he suddenly steps on Abel's head, so he decides to take him to the infirmary. Abel wonders if he is giving up on his coin, but Mash says he is just prioritizing, but he declares he won't lose, no matter how strong they are. Mash leaves with Silva, but Abel feels something is off. He notices a missing button on his puppet, and he finds it in his hand instead of Mash's coin. One of the students can't believe what just happened. While a puppet toyed with a coin, Mash ingeniously dislodged its button, ejecting it at a remarkable velocity to intercept the coin mid-flight, reclaiming his possession. The girl watches in disbelief, and Abel finds Mash's actions intriguing. In the medical wing, Silva regains consciousness, puzzled by his memory lapse post-transformation. Observing Mash exercising nearby, Silva deduces his rescue and questions Mash's motives. Given their prior conflict, Mash's simple creed is to aid anyone in distress, prompting Silva to ponder his deeds. Concurrently, in Mash's quarters, Lance and Barrett engage in a spirited debate, with personal quips and the mention of Lemon's preferences stirring the tension. Finn questions the intrusion, while Barrett's jealousy of Lance's charm simmers. Their confrontation is halted by Mash, who insists on preserving peace in his space, serenely enjoying a cream puff. An urgent update from Lemon directs them to a magical tally revealing the competitive coin accumulation among dorms, with Lang leading significantly. With Alder's formidable upperclassmen absent and Orca distracted by research, the responsibility to challenge Lang falls on them, fueling their resolve. However, Mash's punitive duty at the L Hut, a consequence imposed by the headmaster, interrupts their momentum. There, amidst his cleaning task, Mash contemplates their collective enthusiasm, while Lance, under the guise of strategizing against potential Lang aggressors, joins him, possibly out of concern for Mash. As Lang adversaries loom, an unforeseen aquatic hazard and a menacing blade test their alertness and agility. Mash struggles in the water, and the two Lang students introduced themselves as Andrew and Shinnery, the sixth and seventh fangs of the Majalupus, challenging them to a fight, while wagering a gold coin. Mash says he's never swum. As he sinks into the water, Andrew transforms into a shark and jumps into some water to go after Mash, leading Shinnery to face off against Lance. Shinnery attacks with his blade, but Lance dodges, thinking his magic to control his spinning blade is pretty weak compared to his gravity magic. But as he goes to cast his spell, he is distracted by the elves. He dodges another attack and tries to focus on casting his spell, but he thinks of his sister, telling him not to harm the elves. Shinnery attacks using double blades, and Lance notices the elves behind him, so he ends up getting hit by the attack. Shinnery sees that Lance's wand is made out of magnolia, so he realizes Lance is from the Crown family, who specializes in gravity magic. He heard that the son of the Crown family ran away from home, so he thinks it was because he was too weak, and he thinks he can feel superior for beating someone from the Crown family. Lance manages to use his spell, but it only makes a shovel fall to the ground. Shinnery is disappointed with him, and decides to finish him off, attacking with triple blades. But he thinks something is off, as he notices all the elves in one spot. Lance uses his gravity spell, crushing all of the blades, as he says the elves were in the way, so he moves them by dropping a shovel to cut open a bag of feed to draw all the elves into one spot. Shinnery attacks using his strongest blade, but Lance easily crushes him with his gravity. Shinnery can't believe that even though they both have double lines, there is such a big difference in their power, but Lance says that someone like him, who fights for themselves to feel superior, can't compare to him, who fights for the sake of saving his sister. Meanwhile, Andrew gloats about trapping Mash in his sea field, saying there is no way to escape. But Mash suddenly zooms past, and Andrew is shocked at the speed, not even able to see what it was. He thinks he must be imagining things, but Mash zooms right past him once again. He thinks about how Mash said he didn't know how to swim, but Mash says he got the hang of it, thanking him for helping him realize he could swim. Mash continues to swim all around him, and Andrew feels like he is the one getting hunted, so he uses another spell to transform into a more monstrous form. But Mash crashes into him, continuously hitting him as he swims. Andrew can't handle the blows, and Mash ends up escaping the sea field. Lance takes their coin, and they think they weren't that strong for being members of the Majalupus. Mash thinks they aren't a big deal, but suddenly, another one of their members appear. In an instant, he gets past the both of them, and Lance tries to use his gravity spell, but for some reason, his spell doesn't work. Mash immediately gets into his gear, charging with all his speed, but the man manages to dodge him. Lance wonders if he uses some kind of teleportation magic, but the man uses a magic bottle to collect his allies. The man bids them farewell, but says they will meet again soon, and Lance thinks that beating the Majalupus might not be so easy after all. As the masked man walks away, his mask cracks, and he thinks about Mash's attack. He thinks about how he was able to move so fast, even without magic, and he wonders if they are the same. At night, we see the man as he confronts a student from the Orca dorm for his gold coin. The student attacks with magma magic, but he is completely unfazed, and ends up easily defeating him, disappointed it ended so quickly. Elsewhere, we see a puppet in the robes of a student wandering through the school. The next day, Lance plans how they should deal with the Majalupus. We learn the location of each dorm is hidden, so Lance suggests finding the Lang dorm and going on the offensive to take their coins. But Mash is too busy making cream puffs. Lance gives him a new robe, and Mash notices it has a logo on the back. Lance tells him it's the Mark of Adler, hoping it will remind him that he belongs to their dorm. Lemon suddenly bursts in, telling them something happened to Tom. They visit him in the infirmary, and find he looks completely drained. Tom says he has no memory of how he ended up in the infirmary, but notes that he normally lives his life at full throttle, so he usually falls right asleep and doesn't dream. But last night, he dreamt he was trapped in a dark box, feeling conscious, but he couldn't do anything. Lemon wonders how he is feeling, and Tom says he is okay, but it seems he is temporarily unable to use magic, feeling as though his magic energy has been drained from him. It's revealed there are a number of other students who are suffering from the same condition, and it seems to have started ever since the headmaster was called away by the Bureau of Magic. Lemon gives Mash a cream puff lucky charm, and makes him promise not to do anything too risky. She tells him to always keep it with him, so he can think of her, but she starts to lose at imagining him dreaming about her. Later that night, Lance and Mash wander around the school, looking for the Lang dorm. They are joined by Barrett and Finn, but Lance wonders why they are tagging along. Barrett is interested in getting coins, and Finn just doesn't want to be left alone in his room. As they explore, they end up seeing Lemon, and Barrett rushes over to her, but Lance notices something is off. Lemon's body twists and convulses, and she has been turned into a puppet, but the others manage to avoid her gaze. She continues on her way, and Barrett finds her cute even as a puppet. Resolved to pursue her, they round the bend, only to face a cul-de-sac. Amidst Finn's attunement to her distinct crackling aura, Lance's Revelia spell unveils a concealed portal. Yet another enchantment is required for entry. Barrett's attempt to blast through with his fire magic proves futile, leaving them pondering their next move. In a moment of ingenuity, Mash commandeers a nearby armor, propelling it against the door, which he pries open with a sword leverage as a fulcrum, blasting the barrier sky high, inadvertently remodeling the school's architecture. As they anticipate the Modulupus's ambush, Mash, clutching his talisman, doubts his pledge to Lemon. Venturing into the cryptic subterranean chamber, they emerge into an arena, confronted by Jetsuko, who challenges them to best him for passage. While Lance is poised to engage, Barrett, harboring animosity towards the aesthetically blessed, volunteers, venting his envy. Jetsuko, dismissing his rant as jealousy, morphs his wand into a thorny whip, initiating the duel. Concurrently, at the Bureau of Magic, Headmaster Walbert learns from the director about a dire breach. 6 formidable convicts have vanished from their cells, their escape seemingly orchestrated by the infamous Innocent Zero, leaving a trail of carnage. Back in the fray, Barrett's pyrotechnic onslaught is thwarted by Jetsuko's fine defense, which retaliates with precision. Despite narrowly evading ensnarement, Barrett, undeterred, intensifies his assault, laying a potent trap, though Jetsuko remains skeptical of its efficacy. Questioning Barrett's strategy, Jetsuko lashes out with his floral whip. Barrett's countermeasures falter, and he finds himself ensnared, disarmed, and at the mercy of Jetsuko's merciless botanical assault. Jetsuko tells him the fight is over and goes to finish him off, but Barrett activates his trap card, causing a huge explosion from one of the marks. Jetsuko's wand is destroyed, and Barrett mentions he never said anything about stepping on the marks, revealing that his spell was actually a time bomb. He activates his remaining marks, and Jetsuko can't believe he lost to someone like him. The marks go off and cause a huge explosion. Finn congratulates him, and Barrett is excited to face another opponent. But Jetsuko poses even though he is defeated, and the group suddenly starts sinking into the ground. Mash tries to save his cream puff, and they all get sucked into the ground. They land on the floor below, and it seems they are all split up. Lance suddenly feels an overwhelming energy, and he is confronted by Mashle, the third fangs of the Modulupus. Barrett and Finn land together, and they come across Milo and Love, the fourth and fifth fangs, and Finn thinks they are doomed, but Barrett tells him not to give up, thinking he has the power of the main character. Meanwhile, Mash lands in a dark room, wondering where his friends are. The room lights up, and he is greeted by the masked man, who introduces himself as Razor, the second fangs of the Modulupus. He compliments Mash on his movements from their last meeting, but he seems to have figured out that Mash can't use any magic, and Mash gets worried that someone has figured out his secret. We see Mal as he explains how strength is everything in their world, and the weak are worthless. Lance isn't interested, and attacks using his gravity magic, but Mal gets squished into mud and seeps into the ground. Mashle reappears behind him with a number of clouds, calling his gravity magic interesting, and they charge at him. Lance defends himself with his spell, squashing them back into mud, but Mashle tells him it's useless as the mud starts to reform, attacking with a spike, which Lance barely avoids. Lance thinks he needs to attack the real body to stop the clowns, so he decides to attack the whole field with his magic. But Mashle reappears behind him once again, catching him with his mud, and Mashle attacks with a barrage of hardened mud balls. Mashle thinks Lance is pretty skilled, but says his talent is being wasted, so he invites him to serve the Modulupus. Mashle explains that mages develop depending on their environment and the people around them. He calls everyone in the Adler dorm trash, and tells Lance he will only sink to their level by hanging around them. He boasts about the talent they have in the Modulupus, as well as having the best education, tools, and potions. But Lance scoffs, saying that his strength isn't reliant on his environment, calling Mashle inferior. Lance attacks with his magic, but this time, he sends Mashle into the wall. He explodes with mud, and it seems he has surrounded the room with mud to absorb any impacts. So against gravity magic, which relies on slamming opponents into the ground, Mashle thinks he can't lose. But Lance suddenly starts attacking with rocks instead, and he realizes Lance has worked out his trick. Mashle is forced out of hiding, and Lance claims that he must have a better environment since he is stronger. But Mashle tells him not to get cocky, as he takes out a potion of magical essence that was extracted from the other students. He drinks the potion, causing his power to surge, and he uses an advanced form of his magic, known as Second Death. He creates an enormous demon mud monster, and he goes on to explain that there are different tiers in magic. Second Death magic can only be cast by double liners, and only by the few that are worthy. Mashle thinks back to when he was a child, and his father explains that his worth is solely based on his aptitude for magic, so he has been focused on getting his father's approval. He thinks he is worthy after achieving this level of magic, telling Lance he will never be as strong since he hangs out with other failures. But Lance dodges his attack, thinking about how meeting Mashle helped him improve, as he reveals he can also use Second Death magic, creating gravity pillars that surround Mashle's monster. The monster is pulled by gravity from all sides by each of the pillars, and Lance creates one more above it, causing the monster to be ripped apart. Mashle can't believe he lost, and he thinks back to how his father would never acknowledge him no matter what he achieved, and he thinks that his father was right, and that he must be worthless. But Lance suddenly throws him his book that he found, and Lance comments on how worn it is, so he can see how hard he has worked to get where he is. Lance says that his own family value is worth by position and social standing, so he thinks they were raised in a similar way. But he thinks about his sister, who just wanted to be a singer, and wanted to try her best, which helped him to realize that that is more important. Although he can't agree with the way Mashle thinks, he respects his efforts, and he leaves to go find his friends. Meanwhile, we see Mashle as he worries that Razor knows his secret. Razor thinks they are similar, since they are both rejected by the world, but he says he has his own reasons for being there, so the two prepare to fight. Mashle switches to his athletic attire and launches a forceful kick, propelling Razor backward. Yet, Razor swiftly maneuvers past him, inflicting a slash in his wake. Razor's speed-enhancing magic allows him to circle Mashle, delivering a flurry of strikes, declaring their disparity in strength. Unyielding, Mashle confronts Razor's disdain for his dream of a tranquil life with his family, triggered by their shared hardships yet divergent fortunes. Razor reveals Lemon's dire predicament, her magic being siphoned with only half an hour before she's rendered powerless, mirroring his own condition. Determined, Mashle vows victory, but Razor intensifies his assault, his blade finding Mashle, who seems defenseless. However, when Razor's sword embeds in Mashle's abdomen, it's cut by Mashle's tense muscles, enabling him to seize Razor and counter with a headbutt, cracking Razor's mask and exposing his visage. Observing Razor's reddened eye, Mashle inquires about his well-being, learning it's an evil eye that nullifies magic, a gift that has alienated him. Razor shares his lifelong ostracism and despair, contrasting with Mashle's supportive father. Razor's subsequent spell curtails Mashle's agility while boosting his own, seemingly sealing Mashle's fate. Yet, Mashle disrupts the terrain, undermining Razor's advantage and shattering his blade. Trapped, Razor contemplates retreat, but Mashle's foot anchors him down. Unleashing his muscle magic, Mashle delivers a crushing blow, propelling Razor from the enchantment's boundary, dismantling the spell. Persisting, Mashle pursues and lands a decisive kick on Razor's back. He gets thrown away, but thinks that if he loses, he will also lose his reason to live. So he tries to fight back, and the two clash, but Mashle catches his sword, smashing him into the wall, and Mashle proceeds to smash him around all over the place, finishing things off with a submission attack. As Razor lies on the ground, he wishes he was born normal. We learn his evil eye manifested when he was a child, and his parents locked him up in the basement so people wouldn't find out about him. But after some time, his parents even tried to kill him, and he came to the realization that he should never have been born. But he was given purpose by Abel, even if he was being used as a tool. It gave him a reason to live, but now that he has failed, he thinks he is back to being unwanted. Mashle can see how lucky he is to have his father, and he offers to become Razor's friend. But Razor thinks it's impossible, saying it's only a matter of time before his feelings about him will change. With his thanks for his kindness, Razor warns him not to go ahead, saying Abel is on a completely different level, and he has no chance of winning. Mashle thanks him for the warning, but decides to keep going. He says that no matter what others think about him, his feelings won't change, and he invites him to have cream puffs together the next time they meet. Barrett and Finn are up against Milo and Love, but we see another student has found the secret door, and he prepares to head inside. Love sees they are both only single-liners, thinking they will be easy to deal with, and Milo decides to let her handle them herself, leaving to go and find Mashle instead. Love immediately asks if they like her, but Barrett and Finn find this strange, saying they don't even know her, so she starts asking if they think she is cute instead. Barrett can tell she is trying to be manipulative, but he thinks she is totally his type. However, he claims Lemon is already his fiancée, so he can't be with her, and Love immediately tells him to die. Barrett is shocked she changed so quickly, and Love attacks with her tornado magic. Barrett counters with a fireball, but he can tell there is a big difference in their power. Love claims that all women are queens, saying any guy who can't tell them they are cute and serve them don't deserve to live. Barrett thinks she is being too extreme, and Love asks them if they like her once again. Barrett tries to resist her, saying he already has Lemon, and Finn thinks it must be deja vu. Barrett gets hit by Love's tornado magic and gets blown away. Love claims her father told her she can kill anyone who doesn't cherish her, but Barrett gets back up, attacking with his fireballs. Love says his magic is too weak, but the fireballs land short, causing a smoke screen instead. Barrett lunges for a wand, but Love blows him away, knocking him down. Love reveals that Milo's power is to turn a specific target to stone. The target is the one who opened the door, so Mash will be turned to stone if they don't defeat her and stop Milo within 30 minutes. Love traps Barrett in a tornado cage, telling him it will be impossible for him to escape. Barrett struggles inside it, and Love feels bad for Mash because his friends are so weak, and she calls him a fool for trying to go up against Abel. Barrett feels like he is about to die, thinking there is nothing he can do, but he has a flashback to when he was a child, where some other kids are picking on him, training him with their old broom. But there is suddenly an explosion, as his sister stands up for him. She tells him he should fight back, but he thinks that would only make things worse. She thinks he gives up too easily, saying it will be a problem when he gets a real friend, someone who will stand up for him no matter what, so he must fight to hold on to people like that. He thinks about how Mash stood up for him, and he refuses to let Love mock his friend. As Love goes to finish Finn off, Barrett breaks free from her tornado cage. Love is shocked he broke her spell. She attacks with her tornado, but Barrett easily cancels it out. She wonders how his power has suddenly increased, and she notices the mark on his head, recognizing it as the warding cross, which some children are born with and are considered battle demons who can unleash their magic power when their emotions cross a certain point. Barrett says it's a crime to insult his friends, as he creates countless fireballs around the arena. Love panics, and Barrett claims he is the main character as he attacks with his fireballs. There is a huge explosion, but when the smoke clears, it seems he intentionally missed, and he says he doesn't like hurting girls, so he tells her to just leave. Love thanks him for his mercy, and Finn is amazed he defeated her all by himself. He compliments Barrett, but a stone head suddenly appears behind him, and Barrett pushes him out of the way, blocking the attack. Milo returns, wondering what's going on, and Love apologizes for losing. Barrett is glad Milo gave up on trying to turn Mash to stone, but Milo prepares to crush them, summoning a number of stone hands to attack. Barrett thinks he is about to collapse, and Love calls Milo a prodigy, because he is the only first year in the Majalupis, so she thinks they have no chance. The hens are about to reach them, but Milo is suddenly stabbed by a sword and blown away. Finn recognizes the sword, and Milo wonders what happened. He becomes shocked, realizing he's up against the previous year's divine visionary, Rain. We learn he is the ace of the Alder dorm, and he is also Finn's older brother. Milo tries to regain his composure, thinking he is just a student. He attacks with his stone head, but Rain easily splits it in half. Rain summons countless swords, showing his overwhelming power, and he attacks Milo with all his swords. Barrett witnesses the staggering might of a divine visionary, prompting Love to swiftly abandon the Lang dorm allegiance. In the aftermath, Milo, realizing his imminent defeat, pleads for mercy, claiming coercion into malevolence and expressing regret. However, Rain's relentless reprimands, delivered through forceful kicks, underscore his skepticism toward Milo's sudden repentance, startling Barrett with his ferocity and raising doubts about their alliance. Commanded to evacuate by Rain, who opts to conclude matters solo, Love hastens away. Delving deeper post-interrogation, Rain, on a mission from Headmaster Wahlberg, hunts for clues on Innocent Zero, suspecting nearby hidden adversaries. Encountering Mash, engrossed in a cream puff, Rain senses an oddity in his aura, suspecting him as a possible foe and deploying a magic-detecting spider. Despite Rain's escalating assaults, Mash, with baffling ease, neutralizes the threats, transforming swords into harmless objects, perplexing the spider and Rain with his null magic reading. Doubtful, Rain escalates his offensive, only to be met with Mash's adept deflections, turning aggression into futile clatters of steel. Upon learning Mash's identity, Rain connects him to Wahlberg's descriptions of an exceptional new pupil, extending an apologetic gesture through a magical, healing handkerchief, misinterpreted by Mashle as a fondness for rabbits. As Rain unveils Abel's ambition and his anticipated clash with Mashle for the Divine Visionary title, he expresses support for Mashle's quest, despite foreseeing challenges against Abel's unique magic, especially given Mashle's anomalous lack of it. A concerned Mashle dismisses with quiet confidence in his own unorthodox capabilities. Rain wishes him luck, saying he has other things to do, and Mashle thanks him for his help, but Rain claims he did everything for his own sake. We see Wahlberg telling him about how Mashle puts his friends above himself, and how he even saved his brother, so Rain is rooting for him to achieve his goal. Mashle finds the final room, wondering if the door is a push or a pull. He guesses correctly, but he thinks about Lemon, and ends up blowing the door open. Abel wonders if he has something against doors, and Mashle says he was just trying to knock. Abel is surprised he was able to defeat Razor, thinking Rain should be the only student that could stand up against Razor's evil eye, so Abel thinks he could be on the same level as a Divine Visionary. But Mashle just worries Abel has worked out his secret. However, he becomes relieved when Abel just thinks he is strong, as he refers to him as a fellow superior being, reminding Mashle of his plan to get rid of those who are inferior. He thinks the weak have been taking advantage of their kindness, gaining more rights, and making them weaker overall, so he wants to get rid of them all. Mashle wonders if he means those who can't use magic, and Abel says they need to be disposed of, because just segregating them from society is not enough. Abel also includes underachievers, and people who shelter the weak on his list, but Mashle thinks back to how Byrne took him in. He does a double backflip even as a kid, and Byrne gives him a taste of his first cream puff. He thinks about Byrne telling him how proud he is to have him as his son, and Mashle realizes he can't be friends with Abel. Abel says he just doesn't understand, calling him dense, so he decides Mashle's inferior genes need to be eliminated, as he sends his puppets to attack. We see Love as she goes to find Abel. She is relieved she managed to get away from Rain, but she finds the door to Abel's room broken, and she is shocked seeing Mashle fighting against Abel. Mashle crushes one of the puppets, but acid suddenly spills out from it, and Abel tells him he should be more careful. However, Mashle grabs onto the head of the puppet he destroyed. Love wonders what Mashle can do against the acid puppets, but Mashle throws the head and ends up bowling over all the acid puppets in a single strike. Love can't believe what she just witnessed, and Mashle wonders if Abel would consider himself inferior if he loses. He also wonders what Abel has done with Lemon, but Abel claims he doesn't know who he is talking about as he summons his stronger puppets. He thinks Mashle doesn't stand a chance, but the puppets get sent flying, and Abel realizes Mashle has gotten even stronger since their last meeting. Mashle demands that if he wins, Abel must let Lemon go. Abel is impressed Mashle isn't just all talk, but he uses the strongest puppet, Mashle himself, as Mashle starts to beat himself up. He can't control himself, and we see strings attached to his body. He starts choking himself out, but the string suddenly breaks as Abel apologizes for using such a crude technique, saying it was too one-sided. Instead, he brings out Finn, who he managed to capture and turn into a puppet. He notes he also captured Barrett, but he was too injured to be useful, so Finn will serve as the entertainment. He sends Finn to attack, but Mashle blocks the attack. However, Abel warns him he is not allowed to block, or else he will tear Finn to pieces. Mashle starts getting beaten up, and Abel suggests he has the choice to take Finn out himself, saying that people always want to believe they are good, but that's not their true nature. Mashle continues taking the hits, and Finn's axe ends up breaking, but Mashle is still unfazed. He takes out his gold coin, and Abel wonders if he is finally ready to hand it over. Mashle flicks it at him, but it actually cuts the strings controlling Finn, and Finn starts to transform back into a human. The coin returns to Mashle, and he claims that the coin must just like him better. Abel uses his technique to control Mashle once again, deciding that he is done messing around. Mashle tries to resist, but Abel calls it useless, saying it's impossible for a human to resist his power. Mashle says he will make him regret messing with his friends, as he is able to take a step, breaking one of Abel's fingers. Mashle gets into position as Abel struggles to hold him back, as Mashle breaks free and smashes him in the face. However, Abel activates his skill, and Mashle starts to turn into a puppet. Abel is impressed Mashle managed to make him use this spell, but Mashle is completely transformed into a puppet, and he says it's all over. Abel goes to take Mashle's coin, but it turns out to just be a cream puff, and Abel is confused. He suddenly gets punched, and Mashle returns to being a human, glad that his cream puff is okay. Abel wonders how Mashle was able to move as a puppet, because his puppet magic blocks the electric signals from the brain, so he shouldn't be able to move, but he realizes it must have been a spinal reflex. Just like pulling back after touching something hot, or moving your foot when your knee gets tapped, there are some actions that bypass the brain to respond quickly to external threats. So taking Mashle's cream puff was the trigger for the reflex. And Love thinks it's ridiculous the cream puff was so important to him. Abel acknowledges Mash, so he decides to use the power he gained from extracting the magic from the other students. Summoning an immense puppet, Abel unveils its daunting capability to puppeteer anyone within its vast reach. He chillingly outlines the impending domination, turning victims into marionettes through unseen strings that bind and manipulate at his whim. Love, caught in the spell's radius, fears for her fate. Abel boasts the inevitability of his assault, anticipating Mash's transformation into a controllable figure, yet finds his plan thwarted as Mash remains unaffected, having deftly dismantled the strings. Abel's bewilderment grows, unable to fathom Mash's resistance to his concealed snares. Love, witnessing Mash's tactical bodily maneuvers to evade and sever the strings, stands in awe of his extraordinary intuition and physical prowess. Abel, questioning Mash's very nature, launches another puppet attack, only to watch Mash obliterate it and advance towards him. In a daring rescue, Love propels herself and Mash into the air, culminating in a forceful takedown of Abel. Through a reflective interlude, we explore Abel's past, marked by his mother's altruism and tragic demise, an event that hardened his worldview, championing strength over benevolence. Despite his conviction, Mash challenges Abel's philosophy, asserting the ubiquity of malevolence across all societal echelons. Emerging victorious, Mash demands Lemon's whereabouts, leading Abel to concede and release his magical hold, unveiling Lemon. As Finn awakens, the trio's relief is palpable, their camaraderie rekindled amidst the tumultuous ordeal, with Mash contemplating the complexities of Abel's character, influenced by his maternal memories yet veering towards a contentious path. They all celebrate, and Finn and Lemon call Mash a hero. Finn is in tears thanking Mash, and Lemon apologizes for getting him involved, and she thanks him for saving her. Barrett comes crawling over as well, saying he also helped, and they continue to celebrate together. Abel can't believe he lost to such buffoons, and Finn wonders what happened to Lance. We see Lance in the dungeon, and he runs into Rain. Lance suddenly blocks his attack, and Rain is surprised he could counter his magic. His spider companion reveals his power is through the roof, and we learn that it's not actually Lance, but one of Innocent Zero's associates. The man wonders how Rain saw through his disguise, but Rain is just attacking first and asking questions later, saying that it's faster that way. Rain wonders what Innocent Zero wants from the school. The man reveals they are searching for something. Abel was meant to help them look, but he turned out to be no help, so he is off to kill Abel since they no longer need him. Rain tries to go after him, but he gets stopped by a giant knife. The man goes on ahead, and we see Rain is confronted by another opponent, but he worries for Mash and his friends, because the man heading towards them has the power on the level of a divine visionary. We see Bernd and Brad wondering how Mash is going at the academy, hoping he hasn't been exposed for having no magic. Bernd wonders why Brad doesn't need to work, but he says he is there to get some screen time. Mash and his friends continue to celebrate, and Abel wonders how long they are going to keep fooling around for. Mash excuses himself, saying he needs to go to the bathroom, and his friends are just glad everything is over. We see the other students who were puppets have all been turned back to normal, but the criminals suddenly arise. They wonder who he is, but the man just blows them away. Barrett thinks about fighting him, but he instantly can sense how strong he is. The man approaches Abel, and we learn that his name is Cell. He sees that Abel lost against someone, and he calls Abel pathetic for not being able to reach the top at the school. Cell thanks him for his intel about the headmaster, but he suddenly controls Abel's hands, and Abel starts choking himself. Cell says he couldn't find the one they were looking for, so he is no longer needed. Abel is about to die, but Mash suddenly returns with a plate of cream puffs, ready to continue their celebration. His friends tell him it's not the time for that, and a fly suddenly lands on his nose. It tickles his nose, causing Mash to sneeze, and he throws the cream puffs at Cell. His friends wonder if it was just a coincidence, and Abel manages to get free. Mash asks for his cream puffs back, and his friends can't believe that's all he is thinking about. Cell throws the cream puffs to the ground, which shocks Mash, and Cell suddenly feels his headache as he wonders if Mash is the one he has been looking for. Cell decides to finish what he started, as he lifts Abel up into the air. He prepares to finish him off, and Mash tries to save him, but Razor suddenly appears to protect Abel. Mash rushes over, and Razor apologizes, saying he won't be able to have a cream puff with him. Mash gives him back his magic handkerchief, and Cell is surprised his attack wasn't fatal. He realizes that just before he cast his spell, Mash threw a rock at him which altered his spell's trajectory. Mash stands up to him, and he smashes the ground, kicking one of the rocks at Cell. Everyone is surprised, because Cell is able to catch the rock, and he starts to lick it, but Mash just finds him weird for licking a rock. Cell tells him Razor only has 30 minutes before he is beyond help, so he wonders what Mash will be able to do. He starts attacking with his magic, which Mash smashes with his fists. Cell wonders if he is all talk, combining his magic into a stronger attack, and Mash gets hit. Abel thinks Mash can't win, because there is too much of a difference between them. He thinks back to how his mother would tell him that it was only by chance that they were privileged, and he thinks Cell is just superior to them, so he thinks they have no chance. Cell continues to launch his attacks, but Mash keeps on blocking the attacks. Abel thinks Razor was a fool for saving him, but Mash says Razor was happy. He says Razor was always alone, but Abel was able to give him a reason to keep living, and he was happy to be needed. Mash says he would feel the same way, imagining himself in Razor's situation. Abel remembers that his mother would also tell him to put himself in another's position, so that he can become kinder to others. Mash keeps on fighting, and we see how Razor was feared his entire life. He was always alone, wishing that he was never born, but when he met Abel who accepted him, he was finally able to find a reason to live. He tells Abel to get away while he still can, and Abel thinks he is noble, just like his mother. Mash is stuck defending, and Cell wonders if that is all he can do. Abel can see Mash has no chance to close in on Cell, and Cell starts to get bored, so he attacks with even bigger projectiles. Things are looking bad for Mash, but Abel's doll suddenly protects him. Abel sends his doll to attack, but Cell easily crushes it with his magic. He tells Abel he doesn't stand a chance, but one of the heads suddenly move, revealing Mash was hiding inside, and Mash smashes Cell in the face. Cell, armored and initially unscathed, marvels at Mash's ability to inflict damage, curious about the nature of Mash's power. He dismissively brandishes a spellflexion mirror, a revered magical artifact capable of mirroring any magical attack, prompting Barrett's cautionary advice. Despite the mirror's formidable reputation, Mash effortlessly shatters it, underscoring his unique, non-magical strength, which leaves his companions in awe as they reminisce about his legendary exploits, likening him to a mythic hero. Cell, momentarily unfazed, detects a mysterious mark on his hand, an indication that Mash is the target they've been seeking. Abruptly, the environment crumbles, revealing two colossal hands, signaling an abrupt twist. Cell, citing an urgent commitment, vows a swift return, leaving Mash and his friends in a moment of respite, relieved yet anticipative of future encounters. Abel heads to the infirmary with Razor, and Razor hopes to have cream puffs with Mash the next time they meet. Cell offers Mash his thanks, saying he will return the favor one day. Mash's friends join him, and they are still shocked he has no magic. They worry he will get into trouble if people found out, and Mash starts to get scared, claiming he can totally use magic. His friends decide they will help protect his secret, but one of the other students wakes up, saying he heard everything. He thinks it's ridiculous someone with no magic is at the school, so he plans to tell everyone about Mash. Mash realizes his time has finally come, and his friends wonder what he is going to do. But Mash decides it's the perfect time to have a cream puff. But that's how this series ends for now. Look forward to a new season in 2024. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.